Hey everybody, it's Sue here from Elixir, and I have with me Andrew in Melbourne, Lana in Brisbane, Graham in Sydney. I hope all my fingers went in the right direction when this is recording. And we wanted to come to you and answer a few questions that we know are top of mind for quite a few advisors. I had this idea to do it this way because I recently did a webinar for the AFA, and despite the fact that it went for an hour and a half, we still had loads of questions that we hadn't had time to cover. This is going out to all of the people in that webinar. And we also thought we might release this more publicly because we know there are a few questions here, and we've added a few back in that I did cover in the webinar, but we know these are the things that are really on people's lips right now. So the first one, and there's funny, there was quite a consistent theme around conversation. Obviously, compliance is really challenging a lot of people, and we're in the middle of a bit of flux at the moment. So this was a really pertinent question. So let me give you the question first. Significant changes to compliance have increased our cost to serve, particularly with hold advice. We're keen to move to 12-month agreements. However, we've got concerns that this might put pressure on our ability to meet our annual costs of running the business, salaries, rent, and so forth. How can this be done fluidly and efficiently, as moving to 12-month agreements may take over 12 months, so we would be juggling existing service agreements and the new 12-month agreements? So I might throw to Andrew to cover this one.
Very good. Thanks, Sue. So obviously we're going through a period of transition between old legislation and where we know that there's new legislation coming in terms of how we're going to get clients to sign new agreements. So there absolutely will be this transition period where we've got the old agreement and the new agreement coming in. We do need to wait on that legislation, but assuming that we've got an annual review as a minimum in place. For me, the most important thing will be lining up your annual review to when that agreement is going to be signed. If we can do that and we can track that through our CRM and software and mine that and so forth, I think that it's not going to be so much of an issue as long as we're having those annual reviews, and we probably should be anyway. And I think that a large portion of the advice business does. So I think that as long as we line those up, and then we will figure out the transition requirements between the new and the old, I think it will be a lot more seamless than what people think.
Yeah, it feels like it's a big job to do, but it's one of those things, and this is where it comes down to great planning, right? It's look at the issue. What do we need to get ready? We need to get the new agreement ready. We need to have a field in the CRM that we can capture it once the client signed a new 12-month agreement. And then really it just slots in with your operating rhythm of doing your client reviews. Because you're right, Andrew, I mean, everybody by now they should be reviewing every client once a year. We do know people go, oh, this person has, they just said to me everything was fine, but it's come a time where you have to make sure that they come in, right? So then it just becomes part of the natural conversation in the review. You just present the new 12-month agreement, and it's just a natural part of the flow. One thing actually that did raise an issue for me in that question was the fact that they were saying we're keen to move to the agreement, but we've got concerns that might put pressure on our ability to meet our annual costs of running the business. Now, to me, that's actually just a question around pricing, right, Lana? I mean, you see this fairly often with businesses.
Yeah, look, to me, simple might be the wrong word to use, but it seems to be a simple add to a checklist or a process that they're just completing one more document, and it shouldn't be any more than that. I mean, if you take away the fact that if it's an annual agreement, then you remove the need to do an FDS, so you're bringing back time into the business. So an extra 5 minutes to a review process, if you like, seems to be a bit of a win rather than having to go through a whole process of doing an FDS.
Absolutely. And don't forget, it's going to cut out the need to do opt-ins as well. So you're getting a little bit of extra time back there. The question around being able to meet our annual cost of running the business, that really just comes down to, you've got to make sure that your pricing's right. You've got to have your profit margin built in there. If the greater concern there is that maybe a client won't sign on to the 12-month agreement, Graham, what would your response be to that? And if they're thinking they're going to lose a whole bunch of clients in moving to this 12 months?
Yeah, well, look, the key there is obviously getting proactive, particularly with the high value clients. So you're having those conversations well before the 12-month anniversary, because we all know there's administrative issues of just getting paperwork backwards and forwards. And it's probably a good segue into one of the other questions that came up about what are the platform providers doing to facilitate this. And it seems that from the conversations I've had with the platform providers, there will be an automated process for terminating advice fees at the end of a 12-month period if there isn't an acknowledgement from the client that they're accepting the next 12 months worth of fee arrangement. What's a little unclear still, because of the lack of legislation and guidance from ASIC and also the input from different licensees, is exactly what's that process the platforms will implement for accepting that ongoing fee arrangement. So is it a communication from the client or from the advisor? So there's a little bit unclear about that, but there will be an automated process of a hard close at the end of the 12 months. So that said, it's very important that you proactively deal with this well in advance of the anniversary period, and particularly prioritise those high value clients and make sure that the conversation's, well in advance of the anniversary date.